Now it's my chance to share what I plan on doing for hybrid. Again, I am a little bit leery of it, but this is what I'm going to try, and I'm kind of actually excited to try something new. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Can I do it? Okay, so here's how I figured I'd look at it. I'm going to look at it with the same type of lesson plan as I did in distance learning, and this is really the same kind of thing I do in class too. So I start with my Notice Wonder. So this is my lesson plan that I originally shared when I did distance learning, and I would still set it up on Google Slides just to organize myself because I do need to be ready technology-wise for the kids at home. And so I would share my screen on my smartboard, and then I would share this slide that has my visual that I want the kids to look at. So my kids at home are looking at it on their screen. My kids in class are looking at the smartboard. They're all looking at the same thing. Give them my usual time of a minute or two or whatever they need to think about it, and then I'd ask them to start sharing things out. And I would just use the annotate tool on Zoom to be able to write on the board so that everybody can see what they're coming up with. Okay, next I have play with manipulatives. That is also something that I plan on doing with my kids. In my blog post, I talked a little bit about, like, how am I going to do that? I can't have these kids sharing manipulatives, so what am I going to do? I still want them physically to do it, and the kids at home, what manipulatives are they going to use? So in my algebra class, I use algebra blocks, not algebra tiles. Although I don't know how to do it with algebra tiles unless you get some paint going on. But anyway, I'm going to purchase some dried beans. You can get a bunch of them for pretty cheap. And I'm going to package those up into Ziploc bags. Each kid gets beans. They count as the units or ones. And then also I need something for the X's. Typically in the algebra blocks, the X's are, the same width of the units, and then they're a little bit longer so that they're not squares. They're kind of a rectangular prism. I don't know what to get that's cheap for that. So the thing that I think would be closest to that is I'm thinking like a dry box of penne noodles. Get a couple of those and package those up with the beans. And we'll just have to define them. We have to define them as this is your X's, these are your ones. The other thing I've done where I had envelopes as my X's, because then I could actually put the beans in there. But for the ease of just having them something physical and they don't have to put things in them, I'm gonna go with the penne noodles. And then I'm not totally sure. I want to have a Y also. I'll use the penne noodles for X. Trying to think of what I would use for the Y. I'm not totally sure on that yet. I might just walk around the grocery store and see what I can get pretty cheap. If not, I might look around like the hardware store and what can I get in bulk that would be cheap enough. Anyway, I'm going to put them all in Ziploc baggies and have the kids carry them with them. Our kids are going to have to carry their backpacks with them at all times. So just always have that Ziploc bag of your beans and noodles. And, if a penne noodle breaks, whatever, I'll give them another one. I'm not too worried about that. But then they'll have them with them either in class or they'll have them at home so that when it's time to do manipulatives, they'll have their own set to work with. I think that's my plan. So I'm still going to have them do that. And, start being creative. Like if I need the colored tiles, the, 1 inch by 1 inch square tiles, maybe I get out Cheez-Its or something along those lines. Get a couple of different boxes of Cheez-Its, the white cheddar and the original, and you have 2 different colors. So, be creative. What can you use that is cheap enough that you don't need them back and they don't have to share them? You can have a lot for the kids. Okay, so I'm planning on having them play with manipulatives still if I need them to. And then if I need them to break out into groups, right? So I'm doing group work. So I can still do my Jamboards, and I can do my Jamboards with anybody, kids in school or kids at home. Let's see, if I'm at home, if I'm at school, here's my room. It's really not proportional, but here's my room. I have my whiteboards all around the room. These are actually how many whiteboards I have around the room. And so if I had a full class, I was trying to figure out, can I still distance them enough to be able to work on the whiteboards? So I'm going to put a kid at each board, right? Really, technically, I only want one person writing. So it's okay that there's only one person at the board. At this point, if I measured in between people, I'm already coming up a little bit tight here at the top. It's not quite 6 feet, but still looking at what are my possibilities. Then if I get the other 2 people, because I want 3 people in a group, this is not going to work for me. Again, I said this isn't proportional. I mean, in my room, this person is going to be right about here in between these people. These people are going to be able to touch noses if they wanted. So it's not really quite working for me. I'm going to have to remove one of these boards in the back, not physically, but just not use one of them and move one of these groups in. So then I'm looking at how can I use this empty space in my room Maybe I can set up some, like a whiteboard in the middle of the room that is up on an easel so I can get some more kids in there. This is a bunch of cupboards on this side, so maybe I can do another whiteboard on an easel and utilize that room. I don't know. It honestly probably doesn't work if you measure it out. My room's not that big that I can fit a whole bunch of people like this. But if I had a full class, I would still try. I really am going to have hybrid class. So I'm only going to have about half the kids. So I actually have tables. I got my tables out and I started measuring and figuring it out. I can put a kid here. So I put a kid, I remember I said I only can do 3 whiteboards across. So I moved this kid over a little bit. These are actually all connected, so it's one big wall. So I have my 3, they can fit nicely 6 feet apart there. This one over here, I'll explain in a little bit why this person's off center, but that person's on that whiteboard. This person is actually not right next to the whiteboard. They're up a little bit, and that's part of the spacing too, but they can walk over to the whiteboard if we need whiteboard time. And then I have a nice little whiteboard over here for someone to go. Okay, so because I'm hybrid, I have fewer students, so I'm actually not gonna have 3 in a group, I'm gonna have 2 in a group. And this is kind of the end of the table. So I set up my tables so that they have no choice but to physically be 6 feet apart. And so that's why the lines are so long. But what you'll see is this person right here and this person right here are actually almost too close, but their backs are going to be to each other. I'm not sure of the rules on that. This person's off in the corner, so if they're trying to see the smartboard, it doesn't work. But if they're trying to work on the whiteboard, they can see the whiteboard with this person, so they can do that. My people here, this person can walk over to the whiteboard now, and then this person can see it. And then over here, this person cannot see the smartboard, but they can stand here at their whiteboard and work on that. So this seating arrangement doesn't work well for me teaching at the front, but since I don't do that anymore, it's kind of okay. These kids in the corner, hopefully I don't have too many hours with kids in the corner like this, but we'll make that work. If they have to get out Zoom so they can see it at the same time, then that's what they'll have to do. So this is how I'm gonna make my hybrid work so that they can still work in groups. What if that doesn't work? Okay, so what if I just physically can't make that work? And in reality, when they're there, it's not working out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna have them in their seats. They're already assigned. They're gonna be safely measured apart so that they're safe. And then their groups aren't gonna be the randomness. It's gonna be kind of who they're seated with so that they don't have to yell across the room. They're just gonna talk to who's next to them. So that takes away the random, but they're still in a group, so okay. I can deal with that, not too happy. And then instead of using the whiteboard, maybe they can just use Jamboards. Like maybe they all get their device out, open up Jamboards, and they're all working on Jamboards just as if they were at home and zooming in. So I can tell them you're group 1, you're group 2, you're group 3, and you work on those slides just like they would have before. Okay, it'll work. Okay, but this is hybrid, so not everybody's in the classroom. So how am I gonna make this work? So in-house, I plan on my kids either working on the whiteboards or Jamboards from their desk. I want to make sure that they maintain their physical distances and stay safe. At home, I'm going to run it just like I would if we were doing full distance. So they're going to be logging in on Zoom. And like I said in my blog post, we have this owl that's going to allow for some more interaction between the class and the people at home. Gives a little bit of a camera. But I'm also going to then put them in breakout rooms. So it'll be kind of like I'm running 2 different classes at the same time. I have my kids in class and I have my kids on Zoom in the breakout rooms, and they would be working on Jamboards. So if my in-class kids are working on Jamboards, it plays a little bit with autonomy where they can see what each other is doing. If they don't, then they can just peek at each other's, whoever's at home, they can peek at their Jamboards. So it's fewer Jamboards, but they can still get a little look at what's going on. How am I consolidating? So when I'm done, I'm gonna bring everybody in back to the main Zoom screen. I'm gonna share that Zoom screen on the smartboard. That's actually my plan all the time, is have that Zoom screen on the smartboard. And then I can share the Jamboards. So the kids at home, I can just share those Jamboards on the smartboard screen then. And if I'm sharing my screen, that means the kids at home are gonna see it and the kids in class are gonna see the Jamboards. The boards in class are a little bit more tricky to share for everyone. And I think what I'll end up doing is just going around with my phone and taking pictures, or my iPad, and taking pictures of what's going on at the boards in the room. And I'm either gonna throw those in the Jamboards, or I'll throw those back into the lesson plan I created so that I can just keep sharing my screen and go into those. That way everybody in the room and everybody at home can have the same view of what's going on the boards. But I'm also going to make sure that when I go over them, it's more student voice than my voice. So when we get to each group's smartboard or Jamboard, sorry, or their whiteboard picture, that they'll be the ones sharing with the class what they were doing. So what am I able to do in the thinking classroom with this hybrid model that I've put together? Can always do a problem, not too worried about that. Visibly random groups, not quite as good because I can't mix my students in-house and out-of-house. And maybe I can if I think about it harder, but at this point, the plan I have, I'm not mixing them. I'm also maybe not going to be able to do the random grouping. It might be more in their seating. So that takes that a little bit away. I would like them to be able to stand and work at the boards, but if they can't, they can stand at their desks. But I do want to try and get them physically standing. Another thing that I just thought about is I'm also going to really try and work on that suggestion from Sarah Vanderwerf, you know, or if their answers to find a way to have two parts of their body touching the ground. So just getting these kids to stand up more, especially these, well, both places, kids at home and at school, they're not going to get to move as much. So getting them to stand up and do those. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out Sarah Vanderwerf's post on getting kids to move more in the classroom, because I plan on using quite a bit of that just to get them moving, but they're still able to stay stationary in their area to be safe. Okay, I'm still going to be using my non-permanent surfaces, whether it's Jamboard or whiteboards. My oral instructions, because I'm Zooming live, I'm going to be giving the oral instructions, so that'll stay good. I don't really have much of a room to do front, so I'm not too worried about that right now. Answering questions, this is the part that I'm most nervous about, because I'm going to manage like 2 classes. I'm going to manage my kids at home in school and my kids at home. So like, yeah, I'm like running 2 classes. So this is the one I'm going to be most nervous about. Managing the kids in class, I have to worry about physical distancing, hearing them hearing me, being able to answer their questions, but then not ignoring the kids at Zoom and making sure that I tune in on them also. So it's going to be an interesting part, but I'm going to try my best. I'm still going to do my meaningful notes. I take all of my entire year and I bind them together. So I'm working on that right now in my classroom, bind them together, and the kids are going to be taking these home. They're going to have them in their backpacks so that at all times they can fill in the boxes that we talk about. My autonomy is good and bad. The kids at home aren't necessarily going to be able to see the boards, but they'll be able to see each other's Jamboards. So maybe it's a good idea to have everybody working on a Jamboard. I don't know. We're going to play around with this and see what happens. My hints and extensions, so this kind of goes with my answering questions. You know, can I help them, keep them moving on, let them be frustrated, but step in when I need to? So this again is going to be, I think, the challenge of the day. And leveling to the bottom, I can consolidate. I'm not worried about this part because it's going to be just like before, where we just get everybody together, and on Zoom we'll be able to talk it out and they'll be able to share what they were doing. All right, so that is my plan. I hope it helps some people get some ideas. I know OWL isn't available for everybody, so if you just have Zoom in your computer, it's probably not going to be quite as seamless and easy, but I think you can still do it.